ever wondered how that Amazon package got delivered to your door? Well, chances are it came in the back of a semi-trailer pulled by a semi-truck. So today, we're going on a trucker's journey with the Peterbilt 579 UltraLoft, one of the most sophisticated modern-day semi-trucks to hit the road. We're gonna look at a couple things. We're gonna first fifth wheel. We're gonna look at the axles, the air suspension, and all that beefy looking stuff that can withstand thousands of pounds of weight pushing down on it. And finally, we'll dive into the heart of the beast, a 15-liter Cummins diesel engine that can pull 80,000 pounds for hundreds of thousands of miles. Semi-truck, big rig, trucker talk. Get ready for some trucker lingo. Big thanks to Raycon for sponsoring this week's episode of Bumper to Bumper. Now, I'm constantly listening to music or catching up on podcasts. It doesn't matter whether I'm at the gym or I'm working out in the garage, getting my guns in shape. I've got my Raycon earbuds in my ear hole. Now, their latest model, the Everyday E25, is their best one yet, with 6 hours of playtime, seamless Bluetooth pairing, and more bass, and a more compact design that gives you a nice noise isolating fit. Now, what's even better is that they sound just as good as those other premium earbuds out there, but they're half the price. And with all that moolah I saved on these earbuds, I can spend more time on car parts or motorcycle parts because I'm a motorcycle dude. So click the link below or go to buyraycon.com/bumper to get 15% off your order of Raycon earbuds. All right. We've just spent the night in our sleeper cab. The morning has come. It's time to get to work. We scoot on down to the pickup site, and today's load is 45,000 pounds of Panasonic PVM939 TV VCR combos. So let's see how we hook up this trailer to our big rig. Now, I know you guys have been on the highway and passed by a big rig without a trailer behind it and seen that round, big goo-covered plate on the back and thought, well, what the heck is that thing? And how does it work? And why is it covered in goo? All these questions pop into your head. Well, that's called a fifth wheel, and it's the device that keeps the trailer connected to the truck. Now, there are two parts of this fifth wheel equation. There's a KINGPIN, which is a 2-inch or 3.5-inch diameter vertical steel pin, and that drops down from the bottom of the front of the trailer. And then there's the fifth wheel, which is the horseshoe-shaped coupling device on the rear of the semi. That's the goo-covered part. And why is it so gooey? Well, that goo is grease. Now, the flat plate on the trailer and the flat plate on the fifth wheel hitch are in constant contact with another. So when the truck turns, those two plates, they slide against each other like this. And if they didn't have grease between them, it would wear down, they'd build up a bunch of friction. The front wheels, actually your steer wheels, they would wear incorrectly. There's a lot of stuff that goes on when those aren't greased up. So underneath the fifth wheel, there's a mechanism that locks that KINGPIN into place. And what it does is those jaws, they rotate around the KINGPIN, and the only way that they can ever come undone is from a pull lever outside, which the trucker operates. That prevents that KINGPIN from ever slipping out. And those jaws are made of forged steel, so they are very, very strong. And when you do back that in, it makes that click-clack sound. Man, that is such a cool noise. Only truckers can really appreciate that, but now you can appreciate it. Take a listen. So you got a honker of a truck that weighs 18,000 pounds, an empty trailer that weighs about 17,000 pounds, and packed into that trailer is 45,000 pounds of VCRs and TVs for a combined weight of 80,000 pounds rolling down the road. So how can a semi-truck handle all that weight? Well, it needs big, strong, heavy axles and heavy-duty suspension. Now, there are rules out there that truckers have to follow that restrict the amount of weight allowed over the axles of the tractor and also the trailer, which is why there's weigh stations on the side of the highways. They got to check to make sure you're not going overweight on any of your axles or total combined weight. Now, in the case of the Peterbilt 579 UltraLoft, it has tandem drive axles, so it can hold a maximum of 34,000 pounds on those rear axles. 34,000 pounds, that is an extremely hard number to visualize. I have a F-150 and it weighs about 5,000 pounds. So 7 of my trucks can be stacked on the back of that Peterbilt. Okay, if that doesn't help, just imagine 125 NOLANS dancing on the back of this truck and just being like, yeah, I love you, Nolan. Now, the 579's rear axles have a 40,000 pound GAWR. That stands for gross axle weight rating, and it's the maximum distributed weight that may be supported by an axle. Now a Ford F-250 has a GAWR in the 6,000 pound range to give some perspective here. So these semi-trucks are super heavy duty. Now that weight includes the vehicle, the driver and passengers, the cargo, all the fluids, all that stuff, and yes, the semi-trailer load. So those axles are more than strong enough to handle all that tongue weight. But what about the suspension? There are two types of suspension setups you see in a semi-truck. There's the more traditional leaf spring setup and the more sophisticated air suspension. Now, I'm sure you know about leaf springs. They are used in a lot of pickups and they're made out of steel and they're bent in that semi-elliptical shape because that allows them to flex when there's pressure on top of them or load. Now the other is air suspension, which comes with the Peterbilt 579. And they use air suspension for a few good reasons. They provide a smoother ride with and without the trailer attached. They weigh less, which means you can haul more, which is good. That means more money. And they have better load handling capabilities compared to its leaf spring brethren. Also, the bag acts as your spring. I mean, they're literally called air springs, which means you can effectively change your spring rate by changing the pressure in the bag. Also, it helps making loading and unloading a semi-trailer easier. I'm gonna get to that in a bit, so stick around. Now, air suspension systems uses a variety of valves with air lines and airbags that replace all the steel in the leaf spring setup. And these bags are heavy duty. They're made from a woven and rubber-like material that's capable of handling thousands of pounds of weight pushing down on top of it. And it does that under relatively low pressures, anywhere from 15 psi to 100 psi. And that air is being supplied by a compressor with external air tanks, like this one. Hold on, I'm gonna go get it. I'm gonna go get one. It's like this. It's like this. Oh shit, I pulled it out of the wall. I bent my god dang it. Anyways, it's like this, okay? You got one of these honkers in your truck, but these tanks, they're bigger tanks than this. You have an air compressor with a couple of auxiliary tanks. You guys get it. This thing's heavy. Now, air ride suspensions use a special air valve called a height control valve that controls the amount of air pressure in the airbag. And when a trailer is hooked up and more cargo is added, the height control valve sees movement between the axle and the chassis. And as there's more weight being pushed down on the axle, it begins to squat, right? And once that axle height reaches a certain threshold, the valve sends more air to the air spring. It pumps it back up, bringing the axle back up to the appropriate height. And that height is called the ride height. And when you're unhooking trailers, you can use a dump valve to depressurize the bag, dropping the truck so you can pull away from the trailer easier. Makes truckers' lives a little bit simpler. And they need it because they work really hard. Thank you guys. Now, Peterbilt makes a ton of different air suspension. There's the air track, there's the flex air, there's the air leaf, there's the low air leaf, and there's the low air leaf, because that guy who named it was running out of names. And now the reason there's so many options is because, well, not all truckers haul the same stuff, but the overall principle on how they work is still the same. Now, if you're wondering, what if one of those bags fail? Well, inside the bag is a solid piece of rubber or other type of plastic piece, and it's engineered to prevent the load coming down and damaging the truck in the case of a puncture or sudden loss in pressure in the air spring. So we're loaded up. We're ready to make our way from Houston to LA. You get on the CB radio, you tell your buddy Kentucky Cobra, "On our way, pal." You push the air release button and your trailer brakes release. And then you throw the key into the ignition, you give it a good crank, and you turn on 605 horsepower and 2,050 foot-pounds of torque out of this monster diesel engine. Now, semi-trucks can get spec'd out with all sorts of options, from the cab size to the engine size. And since I'm the one getting to talk about the engines, we're gonna look at the X15 Cummins motor. Now, it is a 15-liter, 6-cylinder engine. Yes, 6 cylinders. The size of the pistons are close to 5.5 inches in diameter. Now, to put that in perspective, this right here is a piston from a 250cc, my RM250 dirt bike, right? And it is about 2 inches in diameter. Now, the Cummins X15 diesel engine, like I said, it has a piston diameter that's 5.5 inches. Now, this is a pad, you know, you use to wax stuff on, wax off. So that is the difference in the size of the diameter of those pistons. That's wild. And the engine alone weighs 3,000 pounds. It's built using really heavy, really strong parts that are built to last. I mean, heck, it doesn't even need a fluid change for 500,000 miles. Now, when I was a kid, I always wanted to know why those big trucks used the green gas handles. Well, first, young and dumb Jerry, it's not gas, it's diesel. But more importantly, why do semi-trucks use diesel engines? Well, it's because semi-trucks need engines that have tons of torque. Now, torque is the twisting force that causes an object to rotate. You probably know that. And in the case of the auto world, it's directly related to the ability of an engine to pull a load. And pulling power is the name of the game when it comes to trucking. So you want peak torque at low RPM, and that's exactly what diesel engines give you. Now, why is that? Well, these semi-truck engines use big bores and long strokes and a ton of compression. The X15 Cummins has an 18.9 to 1 compression ratio, which means it jams a lot of air into the cylinder, especially compared to gas engines. And the more pressure you can build up in the strokes and the cylinders, the more torque the engine will produce. And it just so happens that diesel is also the perfect fuel for high compression. Now, unlike a gas engine that needs a spark plug to light the air-fuel mixture, diesel engines compress that air to such a high pressure and temperature that the diesel ignites without the need for a spark. Now remember, when you compress a gas, you take it from a state like here in the air and you bottle it up into a smaller area, you're compressing that air, it creates heat, right? That's why if you ever use an air compressor and after it runs for a while, you feel the sides of the tank, it's hot. Well, that's because the air is getting forced into a smaller space, a smaller volume, and part of the process, it gives off heat. Now, the temperature of the air being compressed is greater than the auto ignition temperature of diesel, meaning that when the injectors squirt diesel into the cylinder, it spontaneously reacts with the oxygen in the air and combustion takes place. Kaboom, not an explosion. I've said that before, I apologize. Combustion, there's a difference. Explosion, you can't control. Combustion, you can. Diesel engines are also more efficient because diesel fuel burns more efficiently. A gas engine is roughly 20% efficient, meaning 20% of the thermal energy content of gasoline is converted into mechanical work. If we take a car with a 20-gallon fuel tank with gas in it, 4 gallons are actually used to move the car. That remaining 16 gallons is lost to friction, noise, and heat. Now, diesel engines, on the other hand, they can get up to 40% efficiency range. And that's because diesel burns steadily and faster. So if we have a gallon of diesel and a gallon of gas, you have more usable energy in diesel. That means diesel trucks like the Peterbilt 579 can go about 20 to 30% further on a gallon of fuel compared to its gas bro, which means the dual 120-gallon tanks on this thing, 240 gallons total, can get you about 1,400 miles on a fill up when you're averaging 6 miles per gallon. 6 miles per gallon doesn't sound great, but that's actually pretty good considering the amount of weight these trucks are carrying around. So these engines fitted into semis, they have a very narrow power band, meaning they have a narrow range of RPMs to work with. And the X15 is even governed at 2,000 RPM. So as a trucker, you need to shift the gears frequently to keep the engine running at the RPM that gives you the most torque. And to stay in that narrow power band, you need a lot of gears that steps you up to highway speeds. That's why in the olden days, semis with manual transmission used as many as 18 gears. Now, you've been behind a truck before at a stoplight, and when they go to take off, they're lurching forward and bouncing all around. And it's because the person driving that truck is feverishly shifting through the gears. That truck's transmission is probably in 6th gear by the time your car is starting to shift into 2nd. Now, with some current day future tech, those manual transmissions have been replaced with automatic ones. A 579 uses an automatic 12-speed transmission, and it does a few things different from a normal automatic transmission in a car. For example, it will use data coming from the load sensors in the rear of the truck to determine how much weight is on your 5th wheel. It will then, based on that data, determine which gear to start off in. So say you have a light load, right? You're not carrying very much. It might start off as high as 5th gear. And these transmissions talk to the engine. They look at the fuel map, they look at the engine load, even the sensors that determine the angle of the road. They are all used to optimize which gear to shift into. And that helps the engine perform better as well as be more efficient. And just like the engine, these transmissions are beefy. It weighs close to 700 pounds, and it's capable of pulling loads up to 110,000 pounds.
Hey, Kentucky coverage, Florida man. I'm parked out front, bundled out with 45 big ones above horse. Boy, oh boy, am I swinging. Don't make me fingerprint this one on my own, bud.
If there's anything YouTubers like me want to be in life, it's a musician. Unfortunately, I have no talent. But I won't let that stop me from making my own band shirt. I'm super stoked that Wheelhouse finally has its own shirt, and I'm double stoked on how it came out. I really wanted our shirt to emulate some of my favorite bands. It's got a haunted house on it because it's Wheelhouse, and I'm a spooky boy. Also, there's a lot of Wheelhouse Easter eggs included on the shirt. Definitely a milk reference on there somewhere. You gotta look for it, though. I love the shirt. I love how it came out, and you will too. You can get it on our store.
donutmedia.com.
And live out all of your headbanger fantasies.